You're listening to the DownShift podcast, taking you trackside for all things motorsport. We're four mates from Melbourne breaking down the races, the drama, and everything in between, all with a little banter and a lot of passion. If you love motorsport and cars as much as we do, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you're always on the grid with us. And if you really want to join the team, leave us a 5-star review and support the show through Patreon for exclusive content and bonus perks. So it's lights out, drop the clutch, and let's get racing. Welcome to the DownShift podcast. As we start episode 7, we would like to say hello to some of our new international followers. We're spreading our wings a little bit further afield, so to our new listeners, a friendly hire as you join us.
Good way to start.
Very good, yeah. Welcome everyone who's
G'day, mate.
G'day.
Down under.
It is going further afield, so obviously we've touched some other markets. Well, that doesn't sound right, but welcome aboard. So it's great to see some local listeners and followers outside of our family circle also joining the podcast. We do have a bit of interest in some special guest appearances that we are excited about, but look, we want to get a little bit more polished and grow our audience to make the most of those appearances. But look, please continue to provide us with your thoughts through our socials that you can link to via our website at thedownshift.com.au to help us develop our format. So now Nathan and I have just got back from Sydney. In fact, literally landed only about an hour ago from the first ever Race of Champions event in Australia. Nathan, a pretty good premiere for Rock Down Under.
Yeah, it was really, really enjoyable. I think it's been going for 20 or 30 years or something. I didn't realise it had been going for that long, but first time it was in Australia, in Sydney. So Christian and I flew up. I spent a bit of a weekend up there, went to both nights. So the event was split into night number 1, which is the Race of Nations. So it was like country versus country. And then the second night, which was the more popular night that had a bigger crowd attending. It was probably a bit more exciting from a spectator point of view. That was the Race of Champions. So that was just driver versus driver, regardless of country. But yeah, it was a really good event. It was actually pretty entertaining and lots of good action. And yeah, the viewing was good because it was inside a stadium. So they'd actually built the track, laid asphalt and everything on top of a grass stadium, which I thought was pretty cool.
Okay, I have to ask a question though, because I was watching it live on TV and it didn't seem like a massive crowd there. What was your thoughts been there in terms of atmosphere, entertainment, numbers and things like that? Because it wasn't that filled, the stadium, put it that way.
Yeah, as we were turning up to the stadium, we were looking at that going, it doesn't look that great. So the Friday night, and gates opened at 6:30. So as we sort of came in, the stadium was probably about a third full, but then on the Saturday night, it had doubled in size. So I would have said, probably about 60% of the stadium was full, better atmosphere, but also the marketing of it. I mean, I didn't see a lot of big marketing dollars being thrown at it to get people along. But again, it's the first time in Australia, as Huppy was saying, in 30 years.
Yeah, I mean, I think the atmosphere was a bit subdued on the first night, I guess, but like the second night was pretty good, especially because it was driver versus driver, and you were cheering an individual driver, not a country. And we also had the benefit. Yeah, it was in Australia and we had Australian drivers in there who did very well. So yeah, there was a lot of excitement in the crowd. But I don't think it's not the sort of event that is front of mind, I think, for most people in motorsport, especially not in Australia because it's never been here. So like I knew of it. I happened to see ads for it in my social media or whatever. So we bought tickets. So, but yeah, the other thing was too, the tickets were not cheap. They were actually reasonably expensive for an event to go to. I think it was something like $220 a seat to go both nights. And that was just for your basic seating. So it wasn't like a cheap event to get to, but yeah, the crowd was pretty good. I think if they held it in Australia again, you'd get a bigger crowd. It was actually a good night out.
So how much?
How did it look on? Sorry, Shrek.
How much are the pies?
Expensive as usual.
Overpriced food or?
It was not cheap. It was not cheap.
Stadium priced food. But how was the coverage on the TV, Lock? Because I think from our perspective is the commentary wasn't great, But I think, again, it was very much a format that I thought would translate really well to television.
Look, on the TV, it actually came across, it was really good because it didn't appear like there was a long time between the events and the races. So even watching on TV, we'd see the guys drive underneath, they'd get out of the car, you'd see them walk up, congratulate each other, and then, we'd have an ad break on TV, and then you'd be back on, they'd be on the starting line again. So it sort of looked like they changed it over every 5 minutes from our perspective watching on TV, and it didn't seem like there was a huge lag between the actual events. I didn't watch Friday night, I was only watching Saturday night. But look, I thought as a spectacle, I actually didn't mind watching it. My wife had other opinions and said that she'd found a sport more boring to watch than Test cricket. So she will definitely not be attending live if I go and see it again when they come back next year. But no, I actually didn't mind it. I'm not going to lie, I was barracking for the eventual winner of Mr. Loeb. So he's one of my favourite rally drivers. So even though Nathan texted me to say I should be barracking for the V8 Supercar drivers, I could do that.
He was definitely one of the favourites going in. I think when we turned up, we weren't really expecting the Australian guys to make it to the finals because it's the first time that Mostert, Will Brown, and Kostecki had appeared in this event. I think Molly Taylor might have been her first as well, and Toby Price.
Yeah, it was her first too, I think.
But the Supercars guys, and especially they hadn't driven these were like 500 horsepower. 150 horsepower sort of rally cars, with four-wheel drive, handbrake turns, not something they're familiar with. So we didn't expect them to go that well. And historically, Vettel has won it a number of times. Loeb's won it before. And these guys have done it. They've driven those cars. They've been in this event many times. So, but yeah.
Well, Loeb's now the 5-time champion, so he's now the out-and-out champion.
And he drove so well. I mean, it was effortless both nights when just watching him go around. To Nathan's point, there was the BRZs and the 86s. There was the Polaris. There was the FC2, which some of the launches off the bridge were phenomenal. And you could just tell that again they were really comfortable and confident with these. But again, if you look at Will Brown and Chaz Mostert, I mean the control that they had on these vehicles, which you wouldn't expect that they've driven all that much. They did an amazing job.
Yeah, it did, and it was good to see it live because I looked at a bit of the coverage on telly and the camera shots they'd cut from corner to corner, shot to shot, and so you didn't really get to watch the driver's whole lap around. But being live in the stadium, we had a good number of opportunities to watch, Loeb and Vettel how they drove each car because you could watch them around the whole lap. And like Loeb and the other French guy, Victor Martin. They were just so neat and tidy. Like they worked out the cars really quickly. They were the most adaptable of the drivers. And I think on the second night, once Chaz and Will and Brody had a few laps, they started to get their head around it. They got close. For Mostert to finish second to Loeb, and the last two cars he drove were 300 and 500 horsepower all-wheel drive cars around this tight, twisty track. He was only a tenth or two behind. So mega job from the Australians, absolutely mega job. It was really entertaining. I would definitely go
pushed
again.
him, and it was good to watch. I mean, I agree. Some of the times when they'd cut away, and also they go, "Oh, he's touched the fence," and you're like, "Well, we can't see that because you're now focused on one little car."
Yeah,
and all of a sudden and then they had to sort of go back and find a replay, and we could actually just left the ruddy shot on the whole track.
Yeah.
We would have seen him hit that wall or touch it, and so
especially the last half an hour when they were really, really going for it. A couple of them got quite sideways. It took out a heap of tech pro. It was really good to watch. Yeah, really good.
Is the track the same at different venues or different when it's been done overseas, or is the track different every time they do it?
Yeah, it'll vary. Yeah. Yeah, but it's always it's designed to be in a fairly enclosed sort of area. I think they did a Race of Champions on ice, which had a larger track because they drifted around on ice and snow. But if you look at the previous years, they were all basically stadium based, and so they just have one track with a figure eight with a jump over the top. So the design and layout would change a little bit, but the good thing was you've got the whole thing in front of you, and it's 130-metre track for every driver. It's the same length, equal cars. It should be equal. So it was really good to spectate, actually.
Yeah. As my wife calls it, go-karting for grown-ups.
Yeah.
And you can see the draw of this event. I mean, to Nathan's point is 30 years this has been going for. You've got drivers from all over the world who just love doing this. I mean, from David Coulthard through to Johan Christopherson to Chaz Mostert. you're seeing these, and then Sebastian Vettel, and to be for listening to the drivers being interviewed, just the dream of being able to drive against Sebastian was, a highlight of their career. So they've been able to come along and do this. It's mixed disciplines. So, you're getting drivers from every different discipline. For you, Lockie, Dakar, Toby Price was there. And so didn't do as well as he'd like to have done. But again, it's, really interesting driving.
Well, it's funny you mentioned go-karting for adults, because when we turned it on, they were in the KTM slingshots. And my wife went, oh my God, they are driving go-karts.
Yeah.
And I went, well, not quite.
I mean, the difference between those cars and the Polaris, which is a completely different car, and the rally car and the 86s and BRZs was good. The idea is you have to be an adaptable driver. And that's what people were saying in the interviews. And Loeb and these guys obviously done the event a few times. They've got a bit more familiar with these sorts of cars, and they were the most adaptable.
So we saw on the Friday night, it was the Race of Nations. So, and look, to Nathan's point, you've got the V8 Supercar drivers who took it to the entire grid. It ended up being Australia versus France. France took the checkered flag in the end, and just an amazing finish. But again, Will Brown and Chaz Mostert did an amazing job in doing that. And Brody Kostecki was phenomenal as well in his delivery. And then on the Saturday night, again, as we're saying, Sebastian Loeb took out the Race of Champions in the individual competition. Again, Chaz, it was a nail biter to the very end. It was about 0.2 of a second at some point.
Yeah, so really good event at the end. And so if you're listening to this and you haven't seen Race of Champions, get online. I'm sure there's highlights on YouTube. Go and watch some of the highlights to see what it's all about. And if it comes to your country, get along. But at least watch it when it comes out next year. So I definitely will be. I haven't been religious in watching it, keeping up with it, but it's a good bit of fun and good entertainment.
So Cam Waters didn't win it this time? Didn't win this
No, didn't get the invite. No. But we're about to talk about Cam Waters now, Dan. So hang on.
I just thought he was winning everything this year. That's all. That's
why I didn't invite him down, because they didn't want to embarrass the international, so they kept him out of it.
Can I just ask a question on that? Have any of the Australian drivers that drove on the weekend, have they driven in this overseas? Or are they all green to this? Right.
No, they're all pretty green. Yeah, I think Chaz himself said he really doesn't have experience in the little rally car, that sort of thing either, so he had to pick it up pretty quickly. Yeah.
And it was their first time to Race of Champions. So obviously this is the first time Race of Champions was in Australia, and it was the first time that these drivers had actually had the opportunity to be a part of this event. So for that, it actually elevates them on the world stage at the same time. So you're going to see other disciplines looking at these drivers and seeing how well they've done here. So it could open up other opportunities outside of V8s, outside of, rally, etc. And who knows what it could do for them.
Yeah, and we've seen that as well in the last year or two. Like Chaz has been doing some GT program stuff with BMW internationally. Gisbergen's gone off to NASCAR, McLaughlin's IndyCar doing really well. So Supercars is obviously getting known as a good breeding ground for really good race drivers. So, and this will just help that even more, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we'll see from the race champions, Victor Martins, who's coming down to Melbourne for this weekend. He'll be driving in the Formula 2s. And obviously, again, perfect crossover to our next segment with some amazing performances from some of our leading V8 Supercar drivers. We're going to take a short break, and we'll return with our preview of the second round of the V8 Sprint Cup coming this weekend to Melbourne. So back in a moment. And welcome back to the Downshift. V8 Supercars return to Melbourne as a showcase event at the Australian Formula One Grand Prix, with 4 races over 4 days at the iconic Albert Park Street Circuit for the MSS Security Melbourne Super Sprint. 4 sprint races are 19 laps per race, covering 5.278 kilometres to complete 100 kilometres. Now, I'm not sure why we're talking about this. As we said a moment ago, Nathan has already ridden off the season, crowning Cam Waters as the 2025 champion after a clean sweep at Sydney Motorsport Park. But we are certain that the Camaros will be looking for redemption against the Mustangs. So who'd like to kick us off with their thoughts for this weekend's round?
Well, I mean, if we take it from the way Nathan's done it, this could be the shortest segment we've ever done. I think you'll find that the Camaros, they went really well last year. In fact, the Mustangs didn't even get a victory for all 4 races last year. So obviously the track suits them probably slightly better than what the Mustangs were, but we'll just have to see what Cam Waters can do in that jet of a car that he had last time and see if he can get it done. But, I mean, you can't write the Mustangs off because the track seems to suit them.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, Triple Eight dominated last year, apart from the last race, which was a little bit of a mix-up there, but with Percat winning. But, yeah, I think Feeney and Brown took all 3 prior races, so you would expect them to be strong here. They tend to go well at these sorts of flowing circuits with faster corners. But, yeah, look, the way Cam got off to a good start last round, and Mostert, I think they'll be up there. Kostecki will be interesting in the Shell car. He showed some real pace. I think if they can get their head around the setup for that car, they could be up there as well. But again, like we said last time, it's a super close field. There's some really talented guys in there. So I think anyone in that sort of top 10 of the drivers could snag a win here. But as we'll talk about shortly, they're pretty much just short sprint races. So you're not going to be too fussed on tyre wear. It's just going to be getting a fast, near qualifying like setup to work and then making that last for 19 laps.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, there's also, I was going to say, there's just been a bit of a driver change come up for that circuit as well.
Well, it's interesting to see with Aaron Love, who's parted ways with BRT in the Cool Drive Mustang. Obviously, that will have something to do with us at the last race where he was there and took out James Courtney coming out of pit lane. A very costly...
That didn't help his chances.
So we'll see Aaron Cameron, who's the 2024 Dunlop Super 2 Series runner-up. He'll be taking the seat, Aaron's seat there. So we'll see that there as well. And then also, to Nathan's point, is this is now a unique race format to the Sprint Cup because it's truly a sprint race with no pit stops. So 100 Ks flat out, first to the post.
Yeah, which good short races because they have to for the Formula One schedule and everything else that's happening on track. But bit of a shame there's no pit stops, which add a bit of strategy. There's no refueling or tyre changes. So bit of a shame there. It would be nice to have that. But if we've got a little bit of weather coming through on the weekend, that could certainly spice things up. I think there's maybe a forecast of potential showers on Sunday at least. So
yeah, they're talking late Saturday, but I don't think that'll affect the V8s, but possibly Sunday around noonish, I think they were talking about. So
no, yeah.
We'll see.
Now I think the V8s get out on track for their first practice session on Thursday Australian time, about 11 o'clock in the morning. So we'll start to get a bit of a feel for how the pace is looking for everyone on Thursday.
And I know, Happy, you were saying previously that with no pit stops, it does remove strategy. And that was some of the excitement around the new format was having to do those pit stops, having to do those tyre changes does introduce another element to the racing, especially in this short sprint series.
Yeah, exactly. And like with most rounds, teams have a limited number of tyres that they would have to use over 4 races. So what you would typically see is some teams would pit for only 2 tyres in one race to save 4 tyres for the race tomorrow where they wanted to put all their eggs in that basket or something like that. So you would find that would shuffle the field a bit. It would change the way people drove because they might have to look after certain sets of tyres a little bit more. And, any time a car comes into the pits and leaves the pits, there's always a risk that someone's going to stuff up, cross-thread a wheel nut. Something bad could happen. So, yeah, like I said, it's a bit of a shame that we don't have anything like that. But all we can hope for is that the field is tight and that the track develops a lot during the weekend because we know there's Porsche Super Cup on there, there's F2, there's Formula One, they're all laying rubber down, Melbourne weather. So if the track evolves a lot, teams will have to chase a setup to keep improving across the weekend. So hopefully that shuffles the order up a bit and we don't just get a 888 whitewash like we had last year.
Yeah, and to your point though, 888 will be wanting to respond here with Cam's dominance over the first round. Brock, again, sitting in 5th position at the moment, and Brock did really well last year at Albert Park. So we'll expect to see him fighting for it. We'll expect to see Will fight for it as well. So I think we'll see some good tussles. And for a track that has traditionally been good for the Camaros, the Mustangs are going to be up against it.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. Yeah,
I'd agree.
All right, so for those playing at home, obviously thinking in regards to how the race is going to go, we're not going to go through and do a review of each single race and do a first, second, third for those. I think it's probably easier for us to do a best overall for the weekend of first, second, third. So, Nathan, maybe if you wanted to kick us off with your thoughts as to how it's going to go.
Yeah, tough one to pick a first, second, third, just because it was a race weekend last year. The Triple Eight dominated.
For first, second, and third.
I'm going to go Will Brown first, Cam Waters second, Chaz Mostert third. Just to throw something random in there. I think Brock Feeney will probably be third, but I'm going to put Chazzy in at third. So we'll see how we go with that.
How about you, Schwags?
Cam's going to put in the wall. No, Cam Waters is going to win. Moster's going to come second, and Brock Feeney will become third.
Interesting.
Absolutely no expert analysis on that at all. That's just named out of a sort of a hat. But that's
you'll probably be the one that's right.
Come true. Oh well, you laugh.
And look, having a look at it in regards to, I've got Will Brown as being first, just off the performance of Race of Champions. And I say that I'm having a little bit of bias here. I'm going to put Chaz in second place, and that he's really going to be pushing it to Will as well. And then I've got Brock Feeney coming in third place.
So Cam Waters is going to put it in the wall like Dan said? Is that what we're going with? Or?
Who knows?
Okay. Now, so I've gone down, I reckon, not that I'm biased from the Blue Oval at all, but I'm going to put Cam Waters 1, Mostert 2, and I reckon Feeney will come in third. Ford to take out the 2 top podiums.
Look, I think all 4 of our guesses could be correct. We'll see. There might be a dark horse that comes through.
Well,
you never know. There are a few other drivers.
3 of them are the same.
Pretty much, yeah.
Well,
yeah.
maybe not.
Just looking at last year's form. Yeah.
Let me just
well,
get my
you never know. The dark horse could be Aaron Cameron.
Yeah, unlikely, but good pick. Good pick for BRT. He was a jet in TCR and Super 2. He's a fast kid, so yeah, hopefully he does well.
So there we go.
So for those of us playing at home, the series starts on Thursday, the 6th of March at 5:50 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Saving Time, or whatever ridiculous hour that may be for our international viewers. After a day of practice and qualifying, for our Australian viewers, you can see the racing live on Channel 10 and 10 Play or stream it on KO. And for our overseas listeners, the racing will be watched via subscription on SuperView. This weekend also features the opening round of the Formula One 2025 Championship, as we come fresh from testing from Bahrain with an exciting field and competition that has not been closer in a very long time. So we'll invite you to join us for our review and predictions of the F1 2025 in Melbourne. Until next time, thank you for listening, and this has been the Downshift. That's the checkered flag for this episode of the Downshift. Thanks for tuning in and hanging out with us in the paddock. If you enjoyed the ride, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe so you never miss a lap. And hey, if we've earned it, drop us a 5-star review. It really helps us climb the grid and reach more motorsport fans. Want to take it to the next level? Join the Downshift pit crew by supporting us through Patreon. You'll get exclusive content and help fuel the show to keep us pushing flat out every week. Until next time, keep it fast, keep it fun, and we'll catch you on the next lap.